Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Roasted Speech Bubble. I'm Owen,
Yeah, and I'm Parker.
and this is the first time we're doing this, so it'll be interesting, but bear with us.
Yeah, so we've talked about doing this video for quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we finally had the chance to finally sit down and record this video.
So we figured for this series, we were going to be talking about sort of doing a different topic each video. And the topic that we wanted to talk about today was sort of the state of the Zelda franchise.
Yeah, so I guess just to sort of set the stage here, you and I have been Zelda fans for quite a while, right?
Oh, yeah. So I'd say, like, when we were, I was probably around 6 years old when I got introduced to my first Zelda game. Watching.
Yeah, I can't remember
Chris.
how old I was exactly.
You got some debris from the tree above you there.
Yeah, that scared me for a second. I thought it was like
bird crap coming down.
I thought it was like some bird crap. Yeah. I think when I was introduced to Zelda, I must have been around I'd say like 10 or 11 years old around that time. And yeah, basically ever since then, I've been, a huge Zelda fan.
Yeah.
Super into all the games, big fans, except for the newest ones.
Yeah.
But
we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Our brother Chris had a GameCube. It was a purple GameCube with a purple Mad Catz controller. It was the GOAT.
The Mad Catz controller, yeah.
And we had this tiny plasma screen TV that he was playing Ocarina of Time on. And that was like the very first time I ever saw Zelda anything.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the first sort of version, I guess you could say, of Ocarina of Time that I ever saw was the GameCube one. 'Cause we never had a Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
The Zelda series is something that we're both very passionate about.
Yeah.
And I'd say that we're both, not super happy with the current state of Zelda.
Especially after Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, so... I thought it would be a good idea to sort of, record our thoughts, put it in a video, just to sort of get it out there, and what our problems are with Zelda and stuff like that.
So maybe to start out, let's talk about the things that we liked about sort of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
I don't think what we're trying to say here is that the new Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, we're not trying to say that these games are bad. They're not. I don't think I don't think either of us think that they're necessarily bad games. It's clear that these games were made, with, talent behind them. That the devs, had some level of passion.
For sure. And the thing is too is I don't think they're necessarily bad games. Just as someone who's grown up playing the Zelda games, it doesn't appeal. The games don't appeal to me as sort of a lifelong Zelda fan.
We recognize that they're quality games. It's just that we feel that they've sort of lost a lot of what we think makes Zelda games special, right?
Yeah, so, for sure. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper.
If you like these games, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, totally.
We're not saying that
we're not trying to say that you're a bad person for liking these games.
We're not trying to say that you shouldn't like these games.
No.
There's lots of stuff to like about these games, which we're gonna get into right now.
Yeah, and if you enjoy these games, more power to you. Just because I don't enjoy them, I don't want to ruin your enjoyment of anything.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, we're not trying to ruin anyone's enjoyment about with
these
games. I'd say the first positive I'd highlight is just this whole the scope of the world is quite impressive, especially since it's on Switch. I don't know how they got that I don't know how they got either
barely.
I don't know how they got either of those games running on Switch. It's impressive.
At times I think the console itself is wondering.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Sometimes you feel a little bad for the Switch, but and that's the other thing I think I like to highlight. I think as a first experience, it's a really cool first experience.
Yes.
I think the first playthrough is definitely like the best playthrough because you're like experiencing everything for the first time and you're discovering all these things, right? So I think it has a really, really good sort of like first playthrough experience.
Well, I do and I don't like it because it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I thought the power Ultra Hand and the new powers that they added, well, some but not all in Tears of the Kingdom were pretty fun, at least initially. I love that tutorial level in both games. Like,
yeah,
it really introduces you well.
Yeah, the tutorial in both games is very good.
It's time we get into the negatives.
Yeah, so I guess now we'll start getting into sort of more our problems.
The first thing we wanted to discuss were the dungeons. You want to start us out with that a little bit?
Yeah, this is a big one for me.
A huge one, yeah.
And probably one, I'm not sure if it's the biggest disappointment of modern Zelda games for me, but it's definitely like
a large one.
Top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Of like my biggest disappointments. Like,
yeah.
I just don't find the dungeons in either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom to be very good.
No.
Like, do any of them in either game crack top 10?
No. Not even close. Yeah, not even close. I would put many of the 2D Zelda games dungeons above it.
Oh, 100%.
But even if we're just strictly talking 3D Zelda games, it does not come close.
No, it doesn't come close. Comparison. Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that thing about the 2D Zelda games, because a little while ago I replayed the remake of Link's Awakening, and like I found the dungeons in that game to be way more fun and interesting than any of the dungeons in Breath of the Wild.
There's just more on offer, right?
Yeah.
Than like, because like the thing about the dungeons in both games, like, it's just the boss fights are really bad. They were like, I guess, a little bit better in Tears of the Kingdom, but not by much. And like there's so many things that go into it, right? Like so many mechanics like that just make the dungeon experience really rough, and they're very short.
Yeah.
Is one thing as well. Like at least like I could say in older titles that it would take me like around maybe 30 minutes minimum, if not more, to get through a dungeon, depending on the dungeon.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Like, there's not enough time to like build an atmosphere or like build any kind of stakes. There's no mini bosses in any of the dungeons, and like the music in the dungeons, like there's just so many things lacking from these new dungeons that make the dungeons like the dungeons in a Zelda game. You know what I mean?
Like, I'd say to get into like more sort of specifics, like I think the biggest problem with the dungeons in Breath of the Wild is that they just feel too samey.
They feel very samey. Yeah.
They all look exactly the same on the inside, which in my opinion, is very lame. I really like it when each Zelda dungeon in a game feels distinct
visually
from each
distinct,
other. Yeah. I think that's just a lot better. And I was very disappointed by the fact that in Breath of the Wild, they just all feel so samey.
Yeah, and like in Breath of the Wild too, like it's kind of just like a room puzzle. Like there's no sort of sense of progression in the dungeon for me. You know what I mean? Because it's all just one big room.
They did have that mechanic in Breath of the Wild, which is kind of interesting, where like you can move the boss.
Yep.
You can move different parts of the Divine Beast to like change around like where the rooms were and stuff like that.
That was definitely a positive part of it, for sure.
Which that was interesting, for sure. Like I thought that was kind of cool, but I just don't think it was enough to make the dungeons feel very memorable.
No, yeah.
And I don't think they did enough with that mechanic either. Like
no,
I felt like they could have.
It was very one-dimensional.
I felt like they could have pushed it even further.
For sure,
but it kind of worked the same in each Divine Beast, and it kind of lost its coolness factor. You know.
Yeah. Again, the dungeons feeling samey. All the bosses look the same visually, right? Like that's another part
That's another contributing factor.
Yeah, like in previous Zelda titles, you're getting a very unique aesthetic to each boss in each dungeon.
Yeah.
And that was like, I thought the mechanics of the boss fights were different enough, but the visuals of the bosses weren't doing it for me. Like,
you're fighting a boss that basically every time you fight it looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So-
there's not even like a dialogue or like much of like an intro cutscene for the bosses. That just kind of
Yeah.
feels like thrown in there. And yeah, and like, I think about previous dungeons and just the atmosphere of the previous dungeons in previous titles, just how the music created that atmosphere in those dungeons. Like, I think about Ocarina of Time's Forest Temple, and
Yeah.
as like the biggest one. Even the Shadow Temple is also very atmospheric in that way for those reasons.
Yeah, I'd also say that there's like a distinct sort of lack of atmosphere in these new dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say they did a bit of a better job in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
But it was more of a baby step in the right direction.
Very small baby step. And like a lot of the other complaints about the dungeons, like the boss fights being kind of crappy and the puzzles within the dungeons being too simple and too easy to sort of just blow through. Remains.
I was
games.
I was very disappointed that the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom, while they were more distinct visually, they were basically structured exactly the same as Divine Beasts.
Yeah.
Where
and the other thing too is that you're doing the same thing in every dungeon. You're more or less solving the same puzzle, just in a different way. Like, it's go here, activate this switch. Go here, activate this switch. Go here, activate this switch. Do that 4 times, then you get a boss fight. And it's just that over and over again.
I'm not a big fan of this whole, like, go to these 4 different areas to activate 4 different terminals to unlock the final boss door.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think it's very interesting.
No, yeah. And, like, it really doesn't help, too, that in each of these dungeons you're not getting a unique item. Like, part of the excitement of going into a dungeon in older titles was that you were getting something new, something that changed the gameplay distinctly.
Exactly. Like, every time you started a new dungeon in older Zelda games, you knew that by the end of it, you were going to have something new, right? Some new item that you didn't have before that, maybe you can use to go to an area that you couldn't get to before.
Exactly,
sort of thing, right?
Yeah. And something that had a significant impact on the gameplay, on how, like, on fundamentally how you played the game, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, you're given your toolkit from the beginning, and there's nothing really more to get or see that's exciting, right?
Yeah, like, I think the only thing that really comes to mind in, like, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that you can get is sort of, I guess you consider, like, upgrades.
Or, like, the armor sets, I guess.
I guess the armor sets.
But those are sort of pretty minor in compared to the items that you got in.
Yeah.
And you don't get those in dungeons. You don't.
No, you don't get any of those in dungeons.
Yeah.
But the only comparable I can sort of think of is, I guess, like, the upgrades to, like, your stamina and your like, life gauge.
Right.
But I don't know, like, you also upgraded those in older Zelda games.
And they upgraded them sort of just as you played, as you progress. It wasn't sort of like you could explore to find more of those, but it was sort of like more of like an optional thing, more or less, depending on the Zelda game you were playing. You more or less have to do those shrines, and since the dungeon count is reduced, like, you can't just, like, do the main story, right?
Yeah.
Like, you more or less are forced into doing side content.
If you want to, get, like, a decent amount of hearts.
Even if you, like, want to unlock stuff like the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because in one game you need a health bar and one you need stamina bar, and both require shrines, right? So
yeah,
it just feels like the natural progression from the dungeons was much smoother.
Yeah, there's definitely
and
a
impactful.
general sort of lack of like a feeling of meaningful progression in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
The only progression that sort of seems meaningful and substantial is like when you upgrade your stamina and your hearts,
which is just kind of boring.
But like that's it.
Yeah, it's just boring. Like that's all you can upgrade. That was always sort of like an aspect that you could upgrade in the previous Zelda games, right? Upon other things you could find, right? To
yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel as interesting as past Zelda games.
Yeah. It's difficult to sort of go into our issues with one thing without running into other things, because it does. The issues do compound on each other.
They kind of do compound on each other, yeah.
Well, let's discuss the boss fights in more depth. We already sort of touched on the fact that the boss fights suck in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, in both games they are pretty below average in my opinion.
Yeah, over super quick. You can really blow through them.
They're fairly easy. They don't really pose that much of a threat.
The only one I can kind of somewhat remember enjoying was the Lightning Ganondorf boss in Breath of the Wild.
I think the best boss in Tears of the Kingdom was... I'm just talking about the dungeons specifically. Was probably the wind one. I can't remember what its name is, but it's not like super hard, but it is very cool visually.
It is cool visually, yeah.
And I think also has really good music as well in that boss. So
right,
that was probably the best one for me in Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, what I was gonna say was sort of going back to our dungeon talk, and another reason why these bosses kind of suck is the thing about every boss in each dungeon in previous Zelda titles is that you would get the item and you would have to use that item in a unique way to fight the boss. And I always thought that that was really cool.
But like the thing about it that makes it different is that like you've had these abilities since the beginning of the game, right?
Yeah, it's not like exciting to use.
So like it doesn't really feel, by the time you get to the boss, like you've already used these abilities so much, right? That it doesn't really feel like it's something new.
Yeah, and you're not like, it's not like you're using them in a really new way either. Like you're just using that specific power because that's what you have to do to succeed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I feel like, you know, I think about sort of the multiple layers of how you would use an item in previous boss fights. I think about the Forest Temple in Twilight Princess, for example, how you have sort of two aspects of that fight where you're using the boomerang to get the bombs and target the giant plants that the monkey passes from you after the mini boss, the monkey mini boss, after you free him, and then you're going in for an actual combat with the boss, right? I just like that sort of layered aspects to the boss fights where like I have to use the item and then I can go in for a follow-up attack, right?
While there is sort of some of the elements of like using, you know, like your abilities or like your items against bosses in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I think it was done better in the older Zelda games for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, just the boss fights were more exciting. And like specifically what I wanted to talk about when we spoke on this was the final boss of these games. Like the final boss in Tears of the Kingdom and in Breath of the Wild is just not it in compared to previous titles.
So I think they did a better job with the final boss in Tears of the Kingdom.
For sure. Definitely
a step in the right direction. I'm not sure how big of a step.
Yeah.
But definitely an improvement over Breath of the Wild for sure.
Yeah.
The spectacle of the final bosses was really well done.
In Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom.
How were there cutscenes?
Yeah, there's cutscenes for sure. Yeah, it was like visually it looks you know amazing.
Cause like the thing I always like to reference is Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, because those boss fights are so multi-layered and so well done as far as like the cutscenes, the stakes, the production value, the music. All of those things are just so masterfully done in those games. Especially in Twilight Princess. I just think that final boss is so good. The different layers you go through and like the length of the fight. And like at least Breath of the Wild's final boss very much disappointed me when compared to previous final bosses.
Yeah,
in the Zelda series.
I think the most disappointing part about Breath of the Wild's final fight is like the first section is decent when like you're sort of fighting like the spider Ganon thing, but to have the whole second part basically just be like sort of like almost on rails, you could say, is like you can't even die basically. Like it's like just super easy. He has like this one like laser attack I think he does that's like super easy to avoid. Yeah. And you basically just like run around him just shooting all his like big light spots on his body that are like super easy to hit. And he just basically stands still. Like he barely even moves. And it's just like that's it. So definitely Tears of the Kingdom was a lot better. What I appreciate about Tears of the Kingdom's boss battle was that it kind of had like a similar thing to Breath of the Wild, where like sort of like the last part of it was sort of like more like, I guess you could say like cinematic than sort of like actual like challenge, like as far as the gameplay was concerned. But I thought they did it a lot better in Tears of the Kingdom. Like that whole section felt, a lot better done. So I didn't really have too much of a problem with it in Tears of the Kingdom. And another reason why I didn't have too much of a problem with that in Tears of the Kingdom is because there was two sort of phases to the boss before you got to that. And so, it sort of felt like more of like a cool reward for like finishing the two phases first, right?
More earned victory lap.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds to me like generally we don't like the boss fights, but there were a few good things they did here and there, but generally we prefer the old style of boss fights.
Like I just think the bosses, it's not even that the bosses were like necessarily like that hard in older Zelda games.
Right.
They just felt a lot more memorable as far as like the music, the atmosphere.
I think it does a good job too of sort of ramping up the difficulty as you get towards the end of the game. Again, going back to that progression. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think they did a better job of that in older games for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Upping the difficulty as you got further in. Well, why don't we talk about the combat?
Yeah, this is a big one.
This is a huge one.
Yeah, I think you're a little bit more like passionate about this.
Very much so.
I am too, but I know this is like a big one, especially for you.
Yeah, for me, Zelda's combat has been such a back and forth thing over the years. Like I feel like from Ocarina of Time to Twilight Princess, there was a distinct sort of evolution of them trying to add and improve mechanics as far as the combat goes. And then it just sort of they go back and they strip things down severely, and now in modern Zelda games it's so boring. I just find it really boring.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the combat is, I think it can be fun at first, like when you're first sort of engaging with it and learning it. Once you learn how to do the flurry rush move specifically, I think once you sort of learn the timing for that move and sort of master it, I guess you could say, I think the flurry rush makes the combat really boring.
Super boring. Yeah, and the thing about it too is that there's different weapons, but they all kind of more or less play the same. Specifically, Twilight Princess's combat for me always stood out because of mechanics like the hidden moves. I always thought that the hidden moves were a really cool addition, and they gave the player like more sort of freedom of how they want to engage in a combat encounter. Like, I didn't need to do the helm splitter on every random enemy I found, but I did the helm splitter on every enemy I found because it looked cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like it gives you more freedom of expression, right?
Yeah,
like,
and so like there were a multitude of those moves you could find in Twilight Princess as you progress through the game that were just fun and cool to see, and it was so exciting to like get a new move and go test it on the closest lizard guy you could go find and smoke, right? And like, yeah, like it really bothers me that I'm here spamming Y, doing the same move over and over again, and the only thing I can that's really worth going for is a flurry rush. That's the only thing. So it inevitably devolves into do a flurry rush and spam Y, and that's the entire fight.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think the flurry rush just trivializes so many combat encounters
Completely, yeah.
in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like, it just makes the combat too easy.
Very much so.
Because it's not even like the timing, I guess at first might be a little tricky, but like once you get the timing down, it's really not that hard.
And it's kind of something you can spam too, right? Like when a Lionel's coming at me with a 4-piece, I'm just spamming backflip and I'll get it eventually. You know what I mean? Like, if not on my first, I'll get it on my last.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a super high skill ceiling thing to do either.
No.
Not that like combat needs to be especially difficult, but when it completely removes any challenge from a fight, at that point it kind of just
I 100%
just
agree.
trivializes the fight and makes it just tedious, and when you're doing that for a large chunk of the game, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree.
And now one thing they could have done, and I'm more mad at Tears of the Kingdom. The thing about Tears of the Kingdom that really made me mad was the fact that they looked at Breath of the Wild's combat and decided to make 0 changes to it.
Yeah, like, it's insane to me too. Like, they basically just copy and pasted Breath of the Wild's combat
Verbatim
into Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Without any changes at all.
Not any tweaks, not any changes, not any like
outside
outside of the weapon fusing, which is kind of a gimmick that I didn't even really like too much.
Oh, the weapon fusing is 100% a gimmick.
Yeah.
And it does not change the combat.
It doesn't.
In any meaningful way.
No.
Like,
yeah,
I'm
right.
sorry, it's just not enough.
Not enough. Yeah. And like, I don't like when I go around fighting as Link, I want a cool sword, and I just generally want to feel cool. When I'm going around strapping like a night light to the end of my sword, I don't feel cool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm throwing hands with these fetching goblins and lizards with a pom-pom on the end of my fetching sword.
Yeah, you got like a freaking sword with like a soup ladle on the end.
That's not cool, man. Like, I don't like, just from an aesthetic standpoint, the combat also sucks. Like, I don't feel cool doing it with that weapon fuse mechanic present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Flurry Rush is one problem, and the lack of a moveset, period, basically.
Yeah, like, the moveset it feels very basic for all the weapon types. What are the weapon types? There's, so like, one-handed sword.
One-handed sword, we got a heavy sword.
We got the heavy sword, which is like a two-handed thing where you shoot.
And a spear.
And the spear.
Yeah.
Those are the only 3. Only 3.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. That's not that many.
And it's just the same. I mean, the 2-sword, like, you get some knockback, but on the other weapons, like, I guess you get more range with the spear.
I think the coolest thing you can do with any of the weapons is the spin that you can do with like a two-handed sword, where like if you hold the
like they have a unique spin
if you
move,
hold the
spin
attack button,
yeah.
you can like spin around and like it will like hit them a bunch of times while you're
Yeah,
spinning.
and like the spear will sort of
And
do
then
like a
at
rapid
the end it will do.
strike.
At the end, Link will like slam down the sword.
Yeah,
that's probably like the coolest move you can do with the weapon in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But like, it's not that interesting.
No, and like, how many moves did we unlock in Twilight Princess? Right, like I can think of at least 5 that were really cool. You know what I mean? And like, why did that mechanic get stripped away? Why did we not build on that? You know what I mean?
I can kind of understand them taking away that mechanic for a game like Skyward Sword, because Skyward Sword
was trying to do something different.
Yeah, it had
combat.
A different focus for its combat, which was the motion controls.
Right.
So I get it for that game.
Yeah.
But for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom,
there's no excuse.
Like, why couldn't that be something you find in the open worlds?
Another good reason to explore. Right?
Maybe there's like you could find like these secret, I don't know, caves or something that have like these hidden scrolls.
Exactly.
That unlock that can like expand your moveset.
Maybe you find a mini boss that uses that particular move, and when you beat him, you get access to it. Something like that, right?
That would be so cool.
Really cool.
And they just nothing.
Yeah, and you're doing the same. You get to do the same 3-piece move over and over and over again, and then you get to do Flurry Rush over and over again.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the combat, another thing I want to talk about is the parrying. What a worthless mechanic parrying is.
Well, the parrying would be cool if Flurry Rush didn't completely make it obsolete.
Obsolete, yeah. Like this is the thing that blows my mind, is that we have games like Dark Souls, we have games like Elden Ring, where you get a parry and you get a critical strike. That's just like a no-brainer, in my opinion.
Yeah, so many games do that.
And the critical strike exists in these games. It exists as a sneak attack. So
yeah, you can do a sneak attack.
I'm left wondering, like, why the hell is my reward for parrying getting to do the same 3-piece combo? And like when it's a harder thing to hit than Flurry Rush.
Oh, it's a lot harder than Flurry Rush.
And like, what were the devs thinking? Like, they have the sneak attack. Why not just make the reward the sneak attack, where you get like a critical hit from doing a stealth hit? Like, that just seems like a no-brainer to me. Like, low-hanging fruit, like that they could have easily implemented, especially in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, why?
Oh, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom has no excuse.
No changes to the combat in Tears of the Kingdom blew my mind, bro. Like,
and like I can already see some people in the comments being like, "Oh, well, in Tears of the Kingdom you can build a mech to fight for you."
Oh, don't get me started.
Like,
don't. Get me started.
Like, that's cool.
So you're telling me to make the trivial combat even more trivial? That's what you're telling me to go do.
Like, I'm sorry.
Go do the fight for me, Laser, because I don't want to do it, right? Like,
yeah, like, I just that doesn't appeal to me. Like,
not at all. Like, and it's certainly not something I play Zelda for. Like,
no, like, if I wanted that, I'd go play, like, I don't know, Minecraft or Roblox or something like that.
Yeah, like, it's just like building like a machine to do fighting for you just doesn't seem to belong to me in Zelda.
And the other thing too is that the game doesn't incentivize you to do that at all.
No.
So like, you're basically just, at that point, you're just making your own fun.
Exactly.
And like, okay, that's fine, but like,
and like, it's great to do that. It's great to do that.
Yeah, like, you can do that, but like, that doesn't make it.
That doesn't make the mechanic good.
Yeah, it doesn't make it good, right? Like,
yeah. There's plenty of bad games where you can make your own fun. Not saying that these are bad games, but certainly this mechanic is lackluster, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when compared to previous titles. Like, no Zelda game is particularly challenging, don't get me wrong, but it always felt stylish. It always felt, badass to take these enemies out with the tools that they gave you. And it just doesn't feel that way in Tears of the Kingdom and in Breath of the Wild.
No, I totally agree. just going back to that thing that you're talking about, the parry versus the flurry rush. I think you're totally right. Like, it's completely backwards. Like, the parry is way harder to pull off, yet the reward you get for doing it is way worse.
Way worse
than the flurry rush.
Yep.
Which is way easier to do.
Way easier. So
like,
why do it at all?
It's completely backwards.
Yeah, completely backwards.
Like, it should be the opposite. You should get a way bigger reward for pulling off the parry than doing the flurry rush.
Yep. That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah. The only time I thought parrying was a cool mechanic was in Breath of the Wild when you could parry the lasers back at the Guardians. That's exclusively the only time.
Yeah, that's true. That was a cool use of the parry.
Again, that's one use of the parry that I can think of that was worthwhile.
One use of the parry that was actually cool.
Yeah.
And in Tears of the Kingdom, they don't have the Guardians anymore.
Again, though, even in Breath of the Wild, it's kind of pointless to do, even with the Guardians, because you're putting yourself at... It's kind of, again, falls back to making your own fun rule. Because, like, when are you not going to have ancient arrows to, like, smoke a Guardian, right, in the eye one shot, right?
Yeah, there's definitely...
maybe you can do it at the beginning of the game, but...
There's definitely, like, safer options for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah, again, like, it is, fun to do.
And at least you can say it's rewarding, that it actually kills.
Yeah, like, that's an example of a parry that actually gives you a really good reward if you can pull it off. But other than that, I can't think of anything, any other situation where you would rather parry than do a flurry rush.
Yeah.
That's the only example I can think of. It just blows my mind that Tears of the Kingdom was in development for so long, like 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
And
I forget about that.
They didn't even add like a new weapon type.
Like,
not
do
one.
anything, man. Like they added the weapon fuse mechanic, but I don't like that mechanic.
No, that's not enough.
Not enough. Not enough. And yeah, it blows my mind. Again, like you said, it's 6 years of development on the game, and we touched nothing with the combat. Like, that's alarming.
Yeah, like, I was very, very disappointed by that. I thought for sure that they were going to add at least one or two.
At least tweak something.
Yeah,
like,
at least
something.
At least one or two new weapon types, right? That had new movesets.
Like, they didn't even do the bare minimum. They did nothing.
Yeah, like
it's crazy.
There's not even a single new like move in the game. There's not like
I can think of there is actually one new move in Tears of the Kingdom, but it's the earthbending move that you get. But like,
I mean,
kind of worthless. Not really fun using.
But like,
not like it doesn't really add anything to the game.
It's only like one thing that you can do with it. Like all you do is just punch the ground and
it requires you to be unarmed on top of everything. So.
Yeah, all you do is just punch the ground, then the tornado thing comes up. It's not like it has like a bunch of moves.
Yeah,
like you can only do one thing with it.
Exactly. And it's very, very simple, not flashy.
I mean, I guess it's kind of cool, but
a little bit.
I don't really know how useful
is. It the helm splitter? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. It's definitely not.
It's not the helm splitter
as anything in like Twilight Princess. But,
like that's the thing, man. Like the combat was just so much more memorable in older games. Like and the fighting was so much more memorable.
But like I thought before the game came out, like I was imagining like, okay, maybe they're gonna add like a nunchuck weapon or maybe like some sort of like two-handed staff that would have like an interesting moveset that you could use, something.
Yeah.
But they literally added nothing. It was crazy to me.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And like when you strip away, like it or like not, but the combat encounters are part of what made the previous Zelda titles memorable. There were very memorable moments during combat sequences. And when you sort of strip it down to nothing but skin and bones like what it is now, it takes away the ability to have those cool moments and have those memorable moments, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I feels very just sort of bare bones, very stripped down.
Super,
and
yeah. Like
I'd argue honestly that you have more interesting options, even all the way going as far back as Ocarina of Time.
Absolutely.
In the combat,
and I'll tell you why. it's because you had directional inputs. That's
Yeah,
why
which
Ocarina
was
of Time
cool.
was more interesting. Is you could do a piercing forward moving slash, you could do a horizontal slash, and you could do like sort of the standard slash as well.
Yeah, and there's even cool items that you could implement into the combat as well.
Exactly.
Like the
Yeah.
Deku nuts are, you don't have to
Exactly.
use them,
Again,
but
like
it's
goes back to
cool.
those items you got. Like like you could back off and use a bow and arrow. You could use your hook shot to freeze certain enemies. Like it just added so many layers. Those items added so many layers to the game, both exploration wise and combat wise, that it's just lacking in
Yeah,
Tears of
and
the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
I mean, I guess you can use items again in combat, like a bow and arrow and like bombs and stuff in Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. But
yeah.
it kind of goes back to the flurry rush, just trivializing everything. Like it's by far the best option.
Yeah.
So like, why use anything else? Like,
Yeah, that's another problem with combat is the lack of enemy variety.
Yeah, it's not very many enemies.
Pretty rough.
They added some in Tears of the Kingdom. It didn't feel like that many.
Yeah.
But yeah, lack of enemy variety.
I think a problem too is and we were going to touch on this a little later, but I think it's timely that we talk about it now, is the lack of difficulty options is kind of a big problem, especially hurts the replay value certainly.
Yeah.
Like on Ocarina of Time, on Twilight Princess, you had Master Quest modes that sort of changed up the game in a meaningful way and sort of made the game a bit more challenging. And stuff like the Ganondorf amiibo, like increasing the amount of damage you take for Twilight Princess HD, just the lack of difficulty options in general, lack of sort of a good Master Quest, because the Master Quest they added in Breath of the Wild was horrendous.
Yeah, the Master Mode.
It's horrendous for one particular reason, which is the healing. The healing is such a bad mechanic.
Yeah, I don't really understand why they decided to do that. It felt like they sort of took it like one step too far.
Yeah.
And
like, another thing I'm going to mention is that it wasn't included in the game. It was a DLC that you had to pay for. And so now we're adding features that were packaged in to previous Zelda games as a paid-for DLC. Like,
yeah.
And on top of that, we're doing it worse. So...
Yeah, like... I'm fine with like enemies having like bigger health pools and being like harder to kill and stuff, but like when you make it so that the enemies have like passive healing,
it's a problem for one of the other issues, which is the weapon degradation. Is when you add all these super tanky enemies that can heal, you're literally blowing through your entire inventory trying to kill one enemy.
Yeah, I didn't think about that actually.
Like
that kind of makes the weapon degradation like even more annoying.
Because you'll break a weapon, and they'll start healing. You break another weapon, and like the thing about it is like all the enemies are harder, and so your weapons break faster, and
yeah,
and so you get to a point like basically where like if you don't have a full inventory to kill an enemy or a boss, you're not going to be able to kill that boss, and you're just going to have to piss off.
Yeah, like I feel like the healing, the passive healing that the enemies have in Master Mode, it takes it from being like more challenging to just being very tedious.
Very tedious.
And just not very fun.
And like especially at the beginning of the game, you're basically telling me to do nothing but go find the seeds so I can upgrade and get my max inventory set out for my melee weapons.
Korok seeds?
The Korok seeds. Yeah. Before I even go fight anybody. And that's just not well thought through. Like
it's not very well thought through, I agree. Like especially because of the weapon degradation, like you said. Like I just feel like those two mechanics, like the passive healing that the enemies have, and the weapon degradation, just they don't gel very well together.
Yeah.
Like
I really liked the way that Twilight Princess handled it. In its Master Quest, you took more damage, and they removed the ability to find healing in pots. So you had to be more careful about not getting hit, because you would only be able to carry, 1 or 2 red potions depending on the amount of bottles you had at a given time, right? I thought that was a really smart way of doing it. And yeah, I would just like part of the appeal of Zelda games for me is the replay value, and I would like to be able to go play these games in a more challenging difficulty that wasn't completely monotonous and made me want to shoot myself.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tears of the Kingdom had nothing.
That's the other thing I was going to say.
Had literally nothing.
So, Breath of the Wild, we added it as a paid DLC. Didn't package it in with the original game. Tears of the Kingdom, 6 years of development, nothing. No Master Quest, period.
Yeah, no, there was no like harder mode, which
Kidding
I
me.
honestly just find really weird.
Very strange.
Like, did they think the game was that much harder that it didn't need it? Because it wasn't.
No. No. And like, especially like, as Zelda fans, like if you're a fan of the original games, you're getting older, right? And so it would be really nice to have an option to make the game a bit more challenging, because it's a cakewalk, man. It is a cakewalk to get through these games.
Yeah.
And so not even having the option to up the difficulty
Yeah,
in a fun, meaningful way.
I agree. Like, I think having at least the option is...
I think it's just alienating a large chunk of the audience. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And touching on the game having 6 years of development, it doesn't feel like it utilized those 6 years in meaningful ways in a plethora of areas. And one of those is the map.
Yeah, so I agree. You know, when I first heard that they were going to reuse the same map, I wasn't super concerned about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in all the marketing for the game, they were showing like the sky, right? And there seemed to be like this big emphasis on like the sky. And I thought, you know, having that extra sort of extra layer of like the sky was going to make the game still feel like, you know, interesting to explore, even though, you know, the map of Hyrule itself was still the same. But unfortunately, the skies were another big disappointment.
Yep.
I'm trying to think back. Like, I guess there's like a few interesting sky islands here and there. Probably the most interesting one is the tutorial area.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But even that in itself is kind of lame. Like, knowing that like the best thing the sky has to offer is the tutorial area, and outside of that, there's just not
just bits
much.
and pieces, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not really a fully formed thing. It's just kind of...
Yeah, and so I was very disappointed by that, because they made it seem a lot more sort of interesting
and
in the marketing.
impactful, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But a lot of it felt just kind of just copy paste. There's a lot of like copy pasted sky islands.
Yeah. Very copy pasty. Yeah.
And it just felt like it didn't have...
It just didn't bring enough to the table.
Yeah, it just felt like it didn't have that much effort put into it. Like, they just kind of...
I was sort of expecting larger, explorable, interconnected sky islands rather than very small, separated,
yeah, a lot of it just sort of felt like just sort of
segmented.
little bits and chunks that were just sort of like not very connected to each other.
Yeah.
And there were big parts of the map where like they're basically nothing in the sky. Like, I think a good example of that is the Gerudo Desert. Like, that area of the map literally has basically nothing for sky islands.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, because that's a pretty big like chunk of the map. Like,
Yeah.
Gerudo Desert, like, that's not a small area.
Yeah, it's the complete southeastern part.
If I remember correctly, I think the only thing that they had in the sky, like, that was sort of like over Gerudo Desert was like sort of like this little chunk where you could fight one of those three-headed dragons.
Right.
I forget their name, but
Are they called Gleeoks?
Something like
Something
that,
like
yeah.
that, yeah.
But that was the only thing that they had for the Gerudo Desert area.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was literally completely empty. There was nothing.
Yeah. And yeah. The problem I have too, just with, especially given the fact that they reuse the map, is not giving me enough reasons to explore. Like, in Breath of the Wild, they kind of got a pass because it was new. We were seeing these things for the first time. We were seeing shrines for the first time. But in Tears of the Kingdom, we're basically seeing everything that we saw in Breath of the Wild again. Like, as far as reasons to explore.
Yeah.
Being really only shrines. Like...
Yeah, and like, again, like, it's basically just all the same stuff, but with just like a different coat of paint.
Exactly.
And like, I don't know, like, I guess it's interesting to see some of those new coats of paint at first,
but it's not enough to carry the game.
After a while, it just kind of all starts feeling very just the same to Breath of the Wild. Like,
yeah.
Sure, like, yeah, like they changed, like, for example, like Kakariko Village in Breath of the Wild, you know, is not the same as it is in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, they did stuff to make it look different and stuff, and like sort of have like a, you know, like a different feel to it. But I mean, other than sort of like the new coat of paint, like we said, everything else about it is the same.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, like, if there's not any, at the minimum, not really anything compelling new to see, then there's not really much reason to explore.
Yeah, like, in Tears of the Kingdom, I started getting very bored of like exploring because I felt like I'd just seen all of it already.
Because the thing about it too is, like, there's not you can't really argue that weapons are a reason to explore because of the degradation. Yes, is it nice when you find a good weapon? Yes, but like, it won't last forever, right? And so the only thing that's really permanent are the shrines, and we already saw the shrines. Like,
yeah, that's sort of another thing that's just like, it's basically exactly the same except just with a new coat of paint, right?
Yeah, and like, we get to use Ultra Hand in those shrines in cool ways, I guess, but it's shrines. Like, we can't do anything better than shrines. Like, I don't know, like, shrines don't excite me. Like,
oh yeah,
especially going into Tears of the Kingdom after playing Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, no,
I
totally
just feel
agree.
like they needed to do something different, like more different than Breath of the Wild, and sort of separate itself as a sequel. And so the Sky Islands aren't really a good reason to explore. The base map is more or less the same with a few changes here and there. We're seeing shrines all over again. It's the same, basically exclusive reason to explore. And then we have the depths.
Yeah, the depths. So, I mean, it was cool in the sense that, like, they didn't, like,
market it at all.
They didn't show it at all before the game came out.
Yeah.
Which was cool because, like, everyone sort of, you know, had to play the game to sort of discover them. And I think discovering the depths and, like, going to the depths for the first time was very cool. But it sort of suffers from the same issue that the Sky Islands do, in the sense that, like, it's just not really worth exploring that much.
Yeah.
And you know, after you've been there a handful of times, like, you don't really need to go there again. There's not really any reason.
I quite honestly, the only reason I went to the depths is to find decent weapons and just fill my inventory with those.
Yeah, like, the depths were definitely, like, another disappointment.
Big miss, yeah.
Like, they're just kind of boring in general.
There's just nothing really compelling to go and see. Like,
yeah, like, there's only one new enemy type down there, which is like that giant, like, frog creature.
Yeah.
But, like, that's it.
Yeah.
And, like, once you've seen it once, like, that, like, there's nothing else to really see.
Yeah.
I guess there's, like, more powerful versions of normal enemies down there. They're like got the gloom or whatever it's called.
Right.
If you get hit, like it takes away your hearts or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of makes the combat feel a bit more risky, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, it's still the same combat, so
Yeah.
it's still pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the depths. I don't know.
I think visually it was cool. I liked the use of like light in the depths. I thought that was a
like
good
it was
idea.
cool how you had to like light it all up and stuff, but
Mhm.
again, just not really much.
Not enough to see. Not enough reason to go and do.
Yeah, and like it just kind of feels very just kind of empty.
Yeah.
Like
Large amounts of space where there's just nothing going
yeah,
on.
there's just nothing to do. There's nothing. There's no reason to go there. It kind of feels like a lot of wasted space.
Totally. And especially when you consider the fact that the depths are like cover the entire map.
Yeah.
Like, why even bother doing that if there's nothing to do, right? Like, why not just make it a smaller condensed area packed with content and stuff to like that's exciting to see and engage with, right?
Yeah, like for sure.
Like, I don't like, you can argue that like navigating it with like using ultra hand vehicles would be cool, but like it kind of gets boring after a while driving a car or flying a kite into a dark pit of nothingness that you can't see what's in front of you. Like,
yeah,
I
like
just not a fan.
yeah, the depths were one of those things again where like it's cool at first, but
Cool at first, yeah.
once you sort of start getting more into it, you kind of realize there's just not much to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny that it's called the depths because there's not a lot of depth to it.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of goes, that's kind of the running theme for the games, I find, is that like the mechanics are so surface level. Like there's just not enough depth to the core mechanics of the game. One thing that we've talked about a little bit, but I think we should talk about more because it sort of lends itself to the areas, is the music. There's just a distinct lack of good music. I'm not saying all the music is bad. I just think the quantity of the quality tracks is lacking.
Yeah, like in past Zelda games, it felt like whenever you would like find like a new area or like a new dungeon, there was always like a memorable piece of music to accompany accompany it.
Yes, and it sort of helps the exploration too, because when you got to a new area, you got the dopamine rush of like listening to the sick new bop that's playing in the background, right? Like I think about like going to Kakariko Village for the first time in a lot of the games. Like that theme is across the games is iconic, right?
Yeah, or like Gerudo Valley for the first time in Ocarina of Time. Like that song is just like an instant classic, right?
Like it builds excitement. Another thing too that these Zelda games don't do, because you're just exploring all the time, is sort of that opening cutscene when you get to a new area, where you get to sort of see a sweep across the landscape and sort of build excitement.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, they don't really do that
to go explore the area. I always liked that touch in the older Zelda games. It's like, oh, here's this large area for you to go explore. Like here's like these sweet shots of it that build excitement in you as the player.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Like that's not something they really do that much in these new Zelda games. But yeah, like because you're spending so much of your time sort of like exploring the open world in these Zelda games, in these new Zelda games, a lot of the time the music you're hearing is just like the like just the
piano,
the soft like piano music in the background, and like that's fine, but like
I'm not a huge fan of that music at all. Like that those piano pieces are very like kind of nothing burger tracks to me.
Yeah, like they're just kind of like to me they just kind of feel like just like elevator music almost. Like they're just sort of in the background.
Like you think about the track that plays while you're on horseback. You know, it's like sort of that piano track that plays when you're riding in horseback in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Like I think about that track, right? And then I think about walking through Hyrule Field as Link in Twilight Princess, and the absolute like just like orchestra that is assaulting my ears, that is just gorgeous. And then I think about calling Epona, getting on horseback, and how even more instruments and it like come in and it becomes even more fleshed out and hype as you start riding on horseback.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that is such a downgrade. It's so much. I feel like it's so much less cinematic. Like I'm not like this hero anymore, like going to save the world with just me, my sword, and my horse. You know what I mean? Like I just the music and the production of the music just has taken a serious downgrade for the overall atmosphere and
like
vibes.
I also think as well like the atmosphere. Like I feel like in past Zelda games, the music added so much to the atmosphere.
Yes, yeah.
And I just don't really get that feeling that much in these new Zelda games.
No, not at all. Like what we like to go back to, because it's just so good at building atmosphere, is like Shadow Temple, Forest Temple, and Ocarina of Time. Those tracks are so ominous and mysterious and creepy.
Yeah. I say especially for the Forest Temple, like that track from Ocarina of Time adds so much like mysticism to the Forest Temple. It makes it feel so much more just sort of eerie and mysterious, right?
Yeah.
Like the Forest Temple wouldn't be anywhere near as memorable as it is without that music, right?
Yeah. And that goes for honestly most of the dungeons in past Zelda games. The music is generally great in those dungeons. Like I can't think of a bad track from those dungeons that didn't like put me in the area. You know what I mean? Didn't like make me feel like just like enveloped in the atmosphere.
Yeah, like the tracks in the older Zelda games, they kind of like in a way like almost like transport you to that area, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And I just don't really get that feeling with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. And especially for the overworld areas. The overworld areas just basically don't even have music. Like it's basically just omitted, essentially. Like like you get like a few piano hits here and there if they grace you with that, but like other than that, and like you think about Hyrule Field, you think about Gerudo Valley, you think about Zora's Domain. Now, like granted, like there are like a few areas that have those tracks, but it's just not constant enough. Like it's just. There was always music presence in the older Zelda games, no matter where you were, and that being not the case in the new Zelda games, definitely hurts it for me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure. But you mentioned something before about the cooking.
Oh yes.
Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Let's touch on it briefly. The cooking is ridiculous. I don't want to have to fill my inventory with 30 meals and just have infinite healing at any given time.
That's how it works.
That's exactly how it works.
It's kind of silly when you say it out loud, but like that's how it works.
I think like the buffs you can get from cooking are kind of cool.
I don't have a problem with that.
But like again, I don't even mind finding the ingredients necessarily for those particular buffs. I more so have an issue with the healing stuff. Yeah. And the amount you can carry. I don't think you should be able to carry more than maybe 5 meals at a time max. We're rocking 30, 50 out here. It's ridiculous. The amount of food you can carry.
Yeah.
And it's just too much menu scrolling. I find like in previous Zelda games, if I needed something, I click the menu, grab it, I got it. That's it. In Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I gotta open my menu, scroll over to the page I need, and then I have to scroll through all my meals because I've cooked 30, so I'm prepared for literally everything because that's like a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, the game doesn't stop you from doing that.
Exactly.
So.
And like, so I'm scrolling through looking for the exact thing, and it just takes me out of it, man. I hate the amount of menu scrolling.
Yeah, there's definitely too much menu scrolling. I say it's even worse in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Because like if you wanted to infuse your arrow with something, you have to like pull up your arrow.
Oh yeah.
And then like scroll like pages
and
pages.
Same for like the weapon fusing. Like, and you gotta go find the exact like monster part you want to stick on.
Yeah, it totally breaks the pace.
Yeah, it totally breaks the pace. And the armor sets play into that too. Because like, oh, I'm on a skyline. I need the gliding armor. Oh, I'm in the depths. I need the glowing armor. Oh, I'm in a hot area. I need the cooling armor. I need, like, it's just, oh my gosh. Just give me an armor set that I can put some of these buffs on and I can just leave it alone. Because I don't want to go, like, you can't even equip, like, a loadout. Like, that's the thing. Like, it wouldn't be such a big deal. It's like, oh, I have my cool loadout, my flying loadout, and I can just equip all 3 pieces at the same time, no big deal. No, you have to equip the helmet, you have to equip the chest piece, you have to equip the legs separately every time you want to switch your armor set.
Yeah, if you want the buff, yeah.
If you want the buff. And so it's like, bro, it got to the point in Tears of the Kingdom where it's like, I don't care where I'm at. I am not switching my armor. I refuse. Like,
yeah.
Literally like, every 10 minutes, it would be like, oh, this area would be easier if you switched armors, but I'm like, I don't want to, man. I'm just sick of scrolling through my menu. It's so cumbersome.
Yeah.
And like, going back to the cooking, like, it just makes the easy game easier. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got an endless supply of max HP. I've got an endless supply of stamina. I've got an endless supply of whatever the fetch I want, right? And I just can't get behind like having access to everything at any given time. Like, it just makes the game trivial. And like, yeah, like, like literally, like, if I'm in a boss fight and there's no stakes behind the boss fight, I don't want to play that boss fight. And that's what the cooking kind of does for me. It's like, oh, as long as it's not an instant kill, I'm good for decades. I can fight you forever because I have 50 full heals in my inventory.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the big issue is that it is way too easy to make a meal that just like fully heals you. Yeah, it's way too easy. Mm-hmm. Literally, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, if you want to make a meal that fully heals you, the only thing you need to do is to find an ingredient that has
gives you temporary hearts. Yeah.
Is to find an ingredient that has the word hearty in it. Mm-hmm. Like if you find like a hearty radish or something, you literally all you have to do with that hearty radish is just cook it. Just that one.
You've got a full heal.
Just that one hearty radish. Yeah. One. That's it. And you have a full heal.
That's why you can stack your inventory just chock full.
I feel like that's weird. Like, I don't understand why they made it like that. Yeah. I feel like if you want to make a meal that fully heals you, it should be, somewhat difficult to make that meal. You should, need like a bunch of different ingredients that might not be like the easiest to find.
Yeah. And they got to reduce the amount you can carry at a time. It's just too much. Like, you can basically make infinite amount of meals. Like,
yeah,
it's just
exactly. Like, you shouldn't be able to carry like you said, like 30 full heals on you at all times. And again, like, because it's so easy to make those meals that give you full hearts, like, it's super easy to have 30 meals at any given time. Like, it's not even hard to do.
Yeah. If anything, it's just tedious cooking the meals. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah, like I just don't understand why they made it so easy to make a meal that gives you full hearts.
mm-hmm.
I feel like if they wanted to make the cooking like a bit more interesting and rewarding, it should be hard to make meals that give you such a big reward.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like a half-baked mechanic. Like I don't see why, like, people might like not particularly like this, but like, why not like make it like an option to like, oh, you have a hunger meter or something like that. Like, that would compel me to be more engaged with the cooking mechanic, like, especially if it was like on like harder difficulty, where like I had to worry about that kind of thing. They already have some survival stuff with like the temperatures. Like, why not add that as another layer to give something to the cooking?
Yeah, like more of a reason to engage with the cooking mechanic beyond just like healing yourself.
Yeah, healing and buffing yourself.
Yeah. But like, I think that was another thing that I was surprised that they didn't change in Tears of the Kingdom.
Again,
was the fact that like
another mechanic that
it was still super easy to make all those full heal.
Yeah, they didn't put a cap on your inventory. Nothing.
All those full heal meals, like, it was exactly the same. Like, all you needed was another hearty radish.
Yeah.
I think maybe what they might have done as sort of like, I guess you could say like a band-aid fix, and I'm not even sure if this is like 100% true, it's just something that I noticed while I was playing Tears of the Kingdom. I could be wrong. I feel like they made hearty radishes and like the hearty stuff like more difficult to find. I didn't notice that I was finding them quite as often in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
But like, you could still find them, and you still only needed to have one to make a full.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the
full heal.
Yeah.
So it like, it's not really a good fix. Like,
no. Yeah.
Just doesn't feel like a very well thought out.
Again,
mechanic.
another thing that lacks depth, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And is overpowered, right? And just makes sort of the game too easy again, which contributes to the problem of the game getting boring. It just gets boring. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So yeah, should we move on to
the final point, the story?
The story? Yeah, sure.
You want to start, or should I start on this?
You can start.
Okay. So, the way the story is presented in Breath of the Wild and in Tears of the Kingdom sucks. It sucks. Finding these cutscenes out of order around the map, again, something that didn't change, basically, just made it easier to find in Tears of the Kingdom. It just doesn't make for a good story. It doesn't make for good storytelling. Like, the thing about the older Zelda games is that, like, as you progressed, you had engagements with the main villain, and other characters, like, along the way that you just don't really get in these new Zelda games. Like, the story doesn't progress as you go through the game. It's like you have to find it as a side quest, and you find it out of order, so it just feels jumbled.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And there's no like progression to the story. There's no building of stakes, and so like as a result, like, yeah, like there's just no stakes in the game. Like, I don't feel compelled to go do the next big dungeon at all because there's nothing going on in the story right now. Like, I can go find the story, like, I guess, but
yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't feel like the story is really like pushing you forward at all.
It's not. It doesn't push you forward. Yeah,
it doesn't
exactly
feel like
right.
the story has much like forward momentum to it, right?
No, it feels very dead.
It just feels kind of stagnant.
Yeah, and like, there's no interactivity like going on between the antagonists of the game during the game. You know what I mean? Like, in every Zelda game, it was building the stakes up until the finale throughout the entire game, right? Like, in Twilight Princess, you have multiple encounters with Xanth, like the mysterious Twilight. In Ocarina of Time, you have multiple encounters with Ganondorf throughout the game. Like, there's just the raising of stakes higher and higher and higher and higher up until the end of the game that you just like. And in Breath of the Wild, the best way I can describe this is just flat the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you made a good point about like, because you have to basically find these cutscenes. They're basically like a collectible that you can find in the open world.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't even have to engage with the story. Basically, you can go through the entire game without engaging with the story at all.
Yeah, it's all optional basically.
Yeah.
But the thing you said that I agree with is that like these cutscenes, like, they do sort of have like a specific sort of, I guess you could say, like linear order to them.
Mm-hmm.
But because the game is open world and you can find them, you know, wherever and whenever you want, like the likelihood of you finding them in like chronological order is basically
impossible.
None.
Yeah.
So you're sort of end up watching all these cutscenes that are like, all these cutscenes are sort of happening at like different points in the story, right?
Yeah.
And so it kind of makes the story end up feeling a lot more just messy and disjointed, right? Because you could watch these scenes at like any different point in time, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you're disconnected because the story isn't happening in front of you; it's happening way in the past. Or
like the story's happening like way in the past.
It
like,
doesn't
stuff has already
involve
happened.
the player, and so there's no player connection to the story at all.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of feels disconnected from everything.
And like there's no like significant impacts like on the world itself, you know, like there it's super like disconnected with like, you know, like, oh, like we know the Zelda isn't really Zelda, but I'm not going to tell you that, and everyone just has the same assumption that it's the fake Zelda, or like that, like they think it's Zelda but it's not Zelda.
Yeah, you're talking about Tears of the Kingdom specifically because, and that's another issue with this story structure, right? It's because you can sort of see all these cutscenes at whenever you want, like at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Tears of the Kingdom, you can find out that, you know, the Light Dragon is Zelda.
Yeah.
So Link knows this information, right? Like,
and he just doesn't tell any characters.
He's you know, he's seen this firsthand. He knows.
Sorry, we should say spoilers. Spoilers if you haven't been.
Yeah, spoilers. I guess if you haven't been.
We'll put spoilers in the video description.
Yeah. So at this point he knows, and then if you have another dungeon to go off and do, the fake Zelda comes up again, which, I mean, that was just
weak plot point.
They couldn't make it even more obvious, like that it was a fake Zelda.
No
I didn't
mystery,
I didn't even think you need to know that the Light Dragon is Zelda for it to be obvious that it's a fake Zelda.
Yeah.
But like, again, like Link at this point, depending on like if you've gotten all the cutscenes or not, like at this point he knows that the Light Dragon is Zelda, and then you go to do another dungeon, and the fake Zelda pops up again, and Link he doesn't do anything. He just sits there not saying anything. Like he knows that this is not Zelda. Like he has to know. Like he has seen that
debris on you.
Yeah. He's seen that the Light Dragon is Zelda.
Yeah.
And he just
doesn't change.
He sits there not saying
the
anything.
world or the characters at all. Cool.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything. Like and it just kind of makes Link look like very stupid.
Very stupid, yeah. Yeah, and like that's the other issue I have is the characters. There's no memorable characters basically, except for maybe like you could argue like maybe Sidon like has the most personality out of any of the characters.
Yeah, like Sidon isn't terrible, but
when you compare it to like previous Zelda games characters though, like the Fetchin bomb shop owner in Kakariko Village has more personality than anybody. Like from Twilight Princess has more personality than anybody in these two games. Like
no, yeah.
Like the world just felt so much more alive in the video games.
The Goron from Ocarina of Time, Darunia.
Yeah.
He's way more interesting than any of the characters in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And that he was in a game that came out in 1990.
And it goes for the main characters too.
1997, right?
Like Zelda and Link and like Midna and like all the companion characters and the main characters were all way more interesting in previous Zelda games. Like way more interesting.
I totally agree.
Like Link at the very least in previous Zelda games is way more emotive than he is in this game.
Yeah, that's a big issue I have with sort of the modern version of Link nowadays. I don't understand why he is so... He's stoic to the point that it's just, he's really boring. Like, in past Zelda games, like, especially I'd say, like, in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, Link didn't speak, but he was very expressive.
Very expressive, yeah.
Like, sure, he didn't say what he was thinking, but by his emotions, his expressions, you could tell what he was thinking.
Yeah, and it grounded you as a player, and it helped the player feel those emotions that the game wanted you to feel in those moments.
Yeah, exactly. And Link in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom,
I'm wondering if you had a lobotomy. Like,
yeah,
it's
like for real. Though. Like
the most shocking thing will be happening in front of him, some new revelation, and the most he can do is open his mouth.
He's just sitting there, like, just completely blank face. Like they could literally, somebody could go up to Link and literally tell him, like, search his face, that they just witnessed Zelda, like, die.
Yeah.
And he just stand there, like,
yeah,
like, no reaction at all.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like, what the heck, man?
Like, I can't think of a single cutscene where he had any expression other than when you cook. Like,
yeah, like, that's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. Like, why is it the time he shows, like, any sort of amount of, like, personality and, like, like, expression is when you cook.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And so the new Link, personality wise, is nothing.
Yeah, he's completely boring and uninteresting.
Yeah. And like, even like the new Zelda, like, it's alright, but like I kind of prefer the plot line.
It's not terrible, I guess. Like, I don't think the voice actress does a bad job.
Yeah. I think stuff like Sheik in Ocarina of Time was a lot cooler, and like in Wind Waker when she's a pirate.
Yeah, like, I think in Breath of the Wild she was a bit more interesting because it kind of dealt with more of, like, her struggle to, like, accept her responsibilities, which was an interesting angle to go, I think.
Yeah.
But in Tears of the Kingdom, like, yeah, she does, like, that. She makes that critical decision, but
yeah, and like, again, like, even if she is somewhat of an interesting Zelda, the game doesn't do a good job of, like, making you feel connected to her at all, because the only time you see her are in these cutscenes that don't have any effect on the game basically at all, right? So
yeah, because, like, the cutscenes are all, like, taking place, like, in the past.
Exactly.
Which is something that they again repeated in Tears of the Kingdom.
Which is like, again, 6 years of development. Why are we doing this again?
Like, they seriously can't come up with any better way to tell
make
a story.
The story a little more engaging. Like,
yeah, like, that was another thing that shocked me. Like, I couldn't believe that they basically just repeated, like,
the exact same story structure.
The exact same story structure verbatim.
Yeah.
In Tears of the Kingdom.
Mind blowing.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and just the amount of memorable characters and moments just pales in comparison between the older generation of Zelda games and these new Zelda games.
Yeah, like, I think there's a big lack of sort of memorable moments in the story, because, like, sure, the stories in previous Zelda games, like, they might not have been, like, the most, like, original or, like, complicated stories, but at the very least, I feel like each of them had, like, at least, like, one specific moment that, like, stands out, that, like, is very, like, interesting and memorable, you know? I can't think of anything like that in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I can't.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. And
a big part of that is the companion characters. Like, all the companion characters are generally, like, really good and have really good stories.
Yeah, like who will ever forget, you know, when, you know, Midna shatters the Twilight Mirror? Like, incredible moment. Incredible moment.
Yeah. Who will ever forget, you know, at the end of Ocarina of Time, Navi leaving Link
Yeah, another really good moment. Actually, Ocarina of Time, that ending is incredible. It's an incredible ending in the sense that it's happy
and like bittersweet,
but at the same time it's also bittersweet.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting ending in that way because like everything sort of goes, the way of like the heroes, right? Like they win, and it's a happy ending, but at the same time, like it also feels it has this sort of this very bittersweet end to it all because like that like Link is going to go back to the past and live out his childhood, and he's never going to be able to spend time with like Zelda, who he became friends with, and who he spent all that time trying to rescue and stuff, right. And also there's the fact that like since he's going to go back to the past, like when he becomes a child again, like no one's ever going to know what he did from the future, right? So he's not going to get that recognition for being a hero.
Exactly. And like that sort of plays into the game's themes, right, of what it means to be a hero and like the amount of sacrifice it means to be a hero.
Exactly.
That you just like the things that we're discussing, right, like themes, like having a theme and like successfully making the player feel those kinds of emotions that we were describing. It's just not there.
Yeah, it's severely lacking. In Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
And that's a big part of what makes Zelda Zelda, and it's a big reason why we show up to play Zelda in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree, and like I just feel like these modern Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they're just missing too much of Zelda's DNA.
Yeah.
There's not enough of what makes Zelda special in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, it's lacking personality. It's lacking its soul.
Yeah, like I try to think of like kind of like an allegory for it, and the one that I keep coming back to is this like I feel like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are kind of like sauceless spaghetti. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the noodles, they're really good, like all the ingredients are there, but it's missing that special sauce, that makes it that completes it.
It's missing the style, it's missing the soul. Like and it, like a lot of the things that make Zelda so memorable and like special are the little things that the games have always done and have been so good at doing, like the little side stories that you discover, and like like being able to sheath my sword like it's a lightsaber in Twilight Princess. Finding all the cool side stories in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
That's another thing too, like the side quests.
And it just falls back into like the lack of character, right?
Like like you think of like a side quest in Majora's Mask, for example, like the cafe side quest, like that is one of the most like well regarded and like I'd say famous side quests in all of the Zelda games. And there's a specific reason for that because it's actually really good. It's like an actual quest where you have to like
has a story
it has a beginning, middle, and end, and it has a really cool and interesting ending, and it feels meaningful and rewarding to do. And tell me one side quest that's like that in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. There's not a single one. You can't tell me that like they can't do that kind of thing in these modern Zelda games.
I know.
They were doing that on the Nintendo 64.
I know.
Like,
I know.
There's no excuse.
That's the thing too, is that there is no excuse. Right? Yeah. Because for that reason that you said. And there's just not interesting characters to engage with in the world. Right?
No.
Like, and that's a big part of the reason why the side quests suck so much, is because like, who am I doing this for? Like, the fifth little Timmy that I've encountered in a town, like.
Yeah, and not only that, like the reward always sucks too. Like, what do you get?
50 rupees.
You get freaking like a meal that like heals 2 hearts. Like big whipty freaking do.
The ultimate side quest is helping a dude put up a sign. let's go. Like,
yeah, I think the only interesting and cool side quest that I can think of from Breath of the Wild is Terrytown.
Yeah.
But other than that, name me one other side quest.
Yeah. No,
like, there's nothing like Terrytown in Tears of the Kingdom. I guess maybe people would say when you go fight the pirates that have taken over the seaside village or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, that's not as cool as Terrytown.
No.
And not only is it's also disappointing because you sort of hear about it from like these other NPCs, like, oh, these pirates have taken over the village, and so you kind of imagine like, oh, is this going to be like oh, pirates, like, is it going to be like a new like human enemy that I have to fight? Like, is it going to be is it going to be is it going to be like these cool pirates maybe that are sort of like, you know, maybe they're like sort of like they look like they're from Wind Waker or something like that.
Yeah.
And you get kind of excited. It's like, oh, pirates! Like, I get to fight cool pirates and stuff, right?
Nope, it's a bokoblin.
And then you go, and it's literally just the same enemies.
And on top of it all, you get to engage with the same boring combat system, just in a bigger way.
Like they're really gonna tease fighting pirates, and they're really just gonna make it the same bokoblin that I fought thousands of times already.
But they're pirates now.
Yeah, like, oh, they have an eye patch now. Awesome. Freaking amazing, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think what we would like to see in future Zelda games is just sort of a return to those little things that made those games so memorable, and an actual proper evolution of the mechanics rather than stripping them down or adding half-baked ones. I think if we were to sum it up, that's what I would say.
like, it's like I said before, like, taking too much out of like the Zelda formula, right? Like, they need to find a way to implement more of like the elements that made the past Zelda games good.
Yeah,
because there's just not enough of it right now.
Yeah, more of the personality, more of the soul, more of the story.
Yeah, an actual interesting story. Yeah.
And just like a reason to play the game, like a good quality reason to go and do the things that the game has on offer.
Yeah, and I think another big thing too is the dungeons need to be way better. Yeah. Like, you compare you compare the dungeons in a game like Twilight Princess to like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's just night and day. Yeah, like, they're so much better. And like, it just kind of feels like everything is kind of in service of like the open world, to the point where it's like a detriment.
Yeah, you know, to the point where, you know, like, where it's servicing so much, but I don't really want to engage with that open world. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like how beneficial is having this big open world if it makes the dungeon design so much worse?
Yeah,
you know,
it affects a multitude of things. But yeah, we love Zelda, and we just want what that special sauce, sort of what you were describing with.
Yeah, like, we just want that. Yeah, like that sauce back. You know, like the thing that made it special. Yeah, that made it, you know,
gave it identity.
That made it tasty, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I want my sword flip back. I want my story back, and I want my like emotion back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's high time for them to make Link actually have emotions again.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, you say that too, and like, it's not like we're waiting a short amount of time between Zelda games. Like, it's like the last 3D Zelda game that came out before Breath of the Wild was Skyward Sword. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Which is like insane, right? And so like we say like it's time to bring emotions back and like all these things back to Zelda. Well, it's been like basically a decade at this point, if not longer.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time
that these things have been lacking from Zelda. And so like, you know, going into whatever the next game is, I'm really hoping these things start showing up again, because I don't know if I'll buy it or even play it.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to say, but like it's kind of gotten to the point where like if I don't start seeing like serious change and like sort of more of these elements from these past Zelda games implemented again, my interest is kind of non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of sad to say because, you know,
because there's never been a Zelda game that I did not want to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think maybe just to sort of conclude like this video, I was there was an interview a little while ago with IG Aonuma, who's, as we know, is the director of the Zelda games. And I think you and I have both kind of noticed that there's been a bit more sort of backlash to Tears of the Kingdom. More people have been more sort of critical about Tears of the Kingdom and like their disappointment with it and stuff like that. We've definitely seen that like online
for sure.
And I guess like a little while ago, Aonuma was actually asked in an interview about these people who want to sort of go back to like the older Zelda formula, right? And
I remember this.
His answer, I just thought it was just kind of disappointing to me because like he makes it seem like the older Zelda formula had like no merit to it at all. Like I just don't understand that.
Yeah,
like,
what exactly was his response again?
So he said something along the lines of, and
like, why would you want to restrict the way you play?
Yeah, like he said something along, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said like, why would you want to go back to, like a style, I guess you could say, that's like way more restricting in sort of like the way you can play, right? And I guess my answer to that would to that statement would just be like, well, I would want to go back to that style, one, because the dungeons were a lot better.
I think not even just the dungeons, the quality of what was there was just higher.
Yeah, so
like everything was
just
the
dungeons. Number one would be the dungeons were a lot better. And number two, the stories were a lot better too.
Yeah, like everything, everything we talked about, like the music, the combat, like everything there. Like, sure, it wasn't as open and free, but like it was the condensed package you got was very high production value and very enjoyable.
And like, sure, like maybe those older Zelda games were sort of a bit more restrictive as far as like how you could play it and like the exploration and stuff like that, but I mean, at least they felt a lot more interesting to engage with.
Yes.
Right? Because like I feel like with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like sure, like they give you a lot more freedom as far as like what you can do, when you can do it, and like the exploration and stuff like that, but like what good does all that freedom serve if I end up just getting bored of it?
Yeah.
And a lot of it just feels very sort of repetitive. Like freedom is good, but if I just find that freedom boring, then it doesn't really matter.
No. Yeah. I'd much rather have a short, extremely well refined and enjoyable experience than a long one that overstays its welcome and bores me.
Yeah, exactly.
To the point where I don't even want to see the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what happened with you in
Tears of the Kingdom. Exactly happened with Tears of the Kingdom.
So like, he's talking about having all this freedom, and like I just say to that, well, yeah, but like that freedom bores me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How good is having that freedom at, like, how good is that actually? You know?
Yeah. How much does it actually
serve Zelda? How much does it actually offer?
Yeah. All right. Well, it's getting dark now.
Yeah.
And it's been fun chatting about Zelda with you guys. Thank you for joining us for this first episode of Chats in the Back. We have a wild dog barking at us now.
Yeah, he's barking in the back there.
But thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Our ramblings about Zelda.
Yeah, and let us know in the comments. If you agree with us, you disagree with us.
Yes, we want to hear what you guys.
Yeah, like we want to hear what other people have to say. Mm-hmm. Whether you agree or disagree, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
we want to have these conversations.
Yeah,
right? So.
No wrong opinion about Zelda. We're open to hear everybody, and let us know if there's anything else you want to hear us discuss in the future, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Chats in the Back.
Yeah, thanks guys. See ya.
Take care.